Color will change. Right. So I want to welcome everyone to this podcast, 30 in Practice. Sal Gutierrez, your host. I'm here with Dr. Farber and Dr. Tolman. They are the owners of Optimized Chiropractic. And they do chiropractic very differently than anything I've seen before. So I'm really excited to go into this interview. I'm excited to learn a little bit about their business model. And let's get into this.
Awesome.
So both of you came from what school? I mean, I heard that you're from the Bay Area.
Life West, the Bay Area.
Life West. As you?
From Parker University in Dallas.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, this is the first time I've seen chiropractic like this. This is a lot more touch. What is the name of this type of chiropractic? I know you gave me an acronym, but what does it actually stand for?
There's a few different names.
It's a blend of a lot of different techniques that we're putting together here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've actually started building your own field almost.
We are creating our own field, and that's actually how we met, is through a technique that we practice for muscle activation. We met in those seminars, and now we're just taking it to the next level.
That's really cool.
I'm trying to integrate it with some like neurological components of it, because muscles, I guess, from like one step is like, okay, you got to move your bones, make them feel good, and that's like an adjustment.
Yeah.
But then you got to take it to the next level. It's like, well, your muscles move your bones.
Yes.
Okay, so look at your muscles. But then what moves those muscles is the neurology. So we're trying to like put it all together. And then on top of that, we also have an MD on staff who does regenerative medicine.
Okay.
So we start to refer to people to that too. If what we do is not getting them better, if there's tissue damage, and we can do that.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Wow. You were mentioning about the scar tissue with Steve. You're working really heavy on the hamstrings.
Yeah.
Poor guy. His whole leg was popping up, and you're like, lay it flat. He's like, your bone instructions said to go, no, lay it flat.
That's fair.
It's quite amazing. I feel, when I look at chiropractic, I've gone to, you could do some of your competitors like the Joint or some of the other mom and pops. It's very much, you come in, you do an assessment because that's what's the procedure, because they're going to do the same thing on everyone regardless of how much the assessment is. And it's just literally going lumbar, pulling the leg, and then snapping each side and going through that routine. In fact, before I started this whole process, that's what I thought chiropractic was, period.
Fair.
Because that's what everyone practices.
Right.
That's a lot of stress to do, fight against the norm. So what got you to start switching over? And forgive me, you never actually told me the name of what your new technique is called. This is called collaboration.
We're still trying to come up a name, right? With a name right now.
It's still in development, and the name isn't precise. So we're working on that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. One of the people I've helped in another business, branding is everything.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you deal with the name, it really kind of changes quite a bit of what people are looking at receiving, because it gives an expectation.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very good not to just rush into something.
We're thinking about it pretty hard and trying to see how we can make a name simple, easy to say, and also encompass
Everything we do.
Everything we do, yeah.
But the other thing I love about this particular technique style that you have is it kind of goes back to the roots. Chiropractic is healing touch. And this is actually not bone, it's actually healing. You're bringing out, and I don't know, Steve just actively the participant. Because he was moving, especially poor Michaela. He was like, no, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. Just moving her hands. Is that common, or is that?
It's very common for Steve. I think he can tell you a little bit more about Steve's story.
So Steve's story, he's the longest downhill ski racer for the U.S. ski team. And so he saw our mentor for years. And then with us kind of changing the game with adding now neurology to the muscle component and the body component, he's seeing a lot more value with us in being able to treat his brain and how the brain computes the muscles and stability to the joints. And he's 42 plus, and he's still skiing against these 18-year-olds and beating.
He looks like he's 18.
Yeah.
Just with some extra scars.
Yeah.
Well, and like he mentioned too, working in the brain for Steve, obviously that's important because he's, very high athlete. He has to use his brain quite a bit.
Yeah.
But like he mentioned to you, he's had concussions. He's been hit, and kneed himself in the face going 60 miles per hour.
Ran into
right?
a wall,
Yeah.
To a wall from pretty much 3 stories. Like he's been through a lot, and so neglecting the brain would not be wise with someone at that high level.
No, definitely. I hope this doesn't sound rude to the people on the internet. this is something that's really true. When I was talking to Peach Creek,
Oh,
she
yeah.
was talking. I was asking them about the horses, how often they got in business. They said once a week. I asked why. Why would you spend that much on the horses but not yourself? She said, well, they're performance horses. They need to be able to do this to the rail run because if you don't do this, they lose literally seconds, if not more, in the race. And that's the difference between high performance, reputation, gold, and just being one of the normal run of the mill.
Yeah.
And when I was talking to Steve, I was surprised the same terminology coming out of his mouth. Well, you know, I do this about once a week. I was like, why is that? Because it helps me keep me in shape and keep me in top performance.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. I'm beginning to learn how much chiropractic, how much your ability to control yourself changes you from being a top performer to being mediocre.
Oh, I agree.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys are kind of the leading bunch on that. So what percentage of your people are like athletes or just run the mill, you know, mom coming in and pop coming in?
I would say a majority, like going from even like student athletes to like professional athletes, more than 50% maybe. What would you say?
I mean, it's a loaded question because I consider everyone an athlete, even if it's someone that's like, I'm struggling picking up my kids
There you
every
go.
day. Like, you know, I treat a lot of moms that are like, I'm trying to be fit, but I'm also taking care of 5 kids, and it kills me picking up my kids.
Yeah.
And that's athletic, is like picking up Legos every day is athletic.
It's true.
I guess what I was differentiating in my mind is what they consider themselves.
I see.
Because the reality is that when you approach people, when you approach Steve, once the person comes out, it's a professional skier.
Sure.
Yeah.
But when you approach a mom, I'm a mom. And I love that because that is really one of the best things you can do to help them. Well, I love what you said, not what I said, but because it helps them get to the point where they treat themselves better.
Yeah.
Because if they show up for them, their life is so much better. They're not just living, they're thriving.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We're all about that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Steve comes weekly. What's the normal cadence for most people coming?
That just depends. If someone's getting just typical kind of muscle work with us, in the beginning of care, we like to see them more frequently, and then it can kind of taper off. And then also depends on the brain work that Dr. Tolman's doing, because that can also depend too, where someone with a severe concussion could come in multiple times a week to really get the brain to settle down. Or it could be we work on a brain structure, and that might take a week or two and then calm down.
And you just opened a whole bunch of questions in my mind.
Sure.
So really changed it's very individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So brain work on concussions. Wait a minute. I'm not a huge medical person, as you know. I do this from the side point of view. But I thought when you had a concussion, there was very limited options of what you could do.
There has been in the past. Like the science behind knowing what a concussion is and how to treat it is fairly new in general.
Yeah.
And there are more and more treatments coming out for it. However, some of the treatments still aren't individualized to the patient. And so they still go to like a run of the mill, like you do these 5 exercises, you do this and this, and then they come out maybe feeling a little better, maybe not. It's still not individualized. So 1, the individualization I think is really important. But then 2, with the healing portion of it, just like the muscles, we kind of turn things on and make things stronger. We do the same thing with the brain because there's been tissue damage there.
Yeah.
So
I remember one of the talks that was given. I think it was the founder of the CEO of Parker talking about the gray matter separating out. And
Exactly.
The highest damage that happens. I mean, it's just as bad as being in ballistics in the military. You know, women's soccer, just hitting the head on that ball, just constantly having that separation between the two matters.
not great.
No, it's not great at all. And I have 5 kids. I mean, the amount of times those kids fall,
Sure.
and the amount of times that you're worried about the concussion, it's a very common thing. And it's kind of funny that it's so common, yet most times just left untreated.
Oh,
And
yeah.
a lot of that because of that reputation. Well, there's nothing you can do about it.
Exactly.
There's no approach you can do about it.
And some people even think that like, oh, my symptoms aren't bad enough to even go take a look at. But I ask people, do you have headaches? And people are like, just the normal. And I ask them what's normal for them. They're like, every other day. That's not normal. Like, so that's another thing of like trying to like get people to understand. It's like, hey, you don't have to live uncomfortably every day. You just don't. And that concussion could have been it, could have been something else, but going and trying to heal the brain will go and heal everything else too.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
very much.
So we have really good options for that. Kind of just like healing the muscles, we can heal the brain too like that.
Gotcha. So who are your ideal clients? If you are both searching for both, biggest challenge that happens, especially for small businesses, is they shoot too broad of a net. And what ends up happening is that you get too broad of a type of client base. You
Sure.
get really poor clients, you get really awesome ones, and then usually with small businesses, they like, well, we don't like that, then they find their niche.
Right.
I don't know if that's where you're at, or what is your business strategy for finding people to come in to have great clients that are recurring? Because that's what you need.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Our strength in this clinic is that each provider kind of has their own niche target audience or target patient. And so, for example, Dr. Tolman's our brain specialist. So when I have my clients and they need now more brain stuff, I refer to her.
Gotcha.
Type of thing. And so our patient base is very different because we can take everybody. I know that's a wide net, but then we can then put you into the correct provider that will help you. For example, my ideal patient is a CrossFit mom.
Yeah.
And that's my ideal patient that I love working with and helping them feel better with their bodies. But then that CrossFit mom has some kids with some neurological issues. Then I refer refer them to see Dr. Tolman.
Oh, yeah.
We have another provider in our office that does a very specific upper cervical adjustment with a sound wave.
Yeah.
And so headaches and migraines, we're going to refer those kind of patients to him first. And so that's kind of the power and beauty of our clinic system, is having providers with different niches that we can all kind of work together.
Yeah. Almost like a health clinic. How they do it, where they have multiple different groups and they just become the central hub.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing that's a strength of that is that each one of you can hyper focus on your niche to bring them in.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't been interviewing long, but there's been a major trend I've seen for successful chiropractors and the ones that are just struggling. The successful ones, they actually enroll the family and they enroll the friends. It's not about the subscription plan. It's not about the health checkup plan. It's we're going to do what's needed for you, but who else do you know? Because everyone else in your family needs this.
Right.
They just don't know it yet.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems like that's what you're touching. That is the core foundation of what you're doing. So that's awesome.
And we do want to like incorporate the whole family because, I mean, even just stress will wreak havoc everywhere. You know what I mean? And so if we can get everyone feeling good too, stress levels in the home also go down, which is like something, why not? Right. So it's good.
That's really true. Actually, the previous interview, the third one, was actually me interviewing a guy named James Kawanui.
Okay.
And he does Hawaiian healing.
Oh.
And the whole mix with it.
Yeah.
And there's a whole idea of that stress is actually a disease. It's diseasing the family.
Sure.
And that will cause the other problems.
Oh, yeah.
It's the root of the start. It starts messing up with your brain, as you said, the brain, and then everything else falls apart from there. So I really becoming an advocate of that mentality.
The 3 T's of like what I guess like stress, what causes stress in the body, distress,
Please tell me.
Toxins, traumas, and thoughts. So that's kind of what the basis of chiropractic there. And honestly, I guess in a way we're trying to just get down to that. And Dr. Farmer, you specialize in the methylation?
And so, I work on my specialty that I'm developing is how to change people's DNA and genes through supplements.
Oh, okay.
So you can supplement so you can take a genetic test, like a 23andMe, and then you figure out which genes are working, not working, and then properly. Like a very popular one right now is like MTHFR gene. So people have a hard time detoxifying heavy metals.
Yes.
So you supplement methylfolate. So I'm working on that component to be able to provide that to our patients here, because Dr. Tolman can work on the neurology of digestion, and then we can supplement and figure out what they're missing for their genetic scope.
Yeah, because without the founding blocks, you cannot make it work, no matter how good the pathways are.
Exactly.
I totally agree. Oh, yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense. This is exciting. I'm having fun. I don't know if you guys...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I got to take off and see a patient.
Oh, okay.
That is no worries.
Perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine.
Thanks for your time, Dr. Farmer.
Oh, yeah, no. This is a pleasure.
Hand it over and
thanks.
crush it.
Thanks. You do.
Yeah.
Fixing some technicalities.
Glad we had a surprise guest.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. I'm really excited. So I get just this a little bit over here.
Cool. Yeah, that works out.
So how did you meet Dr. Farmer and how did this whole thing start? Because you went to school. I'm pretty sure you weren't thinking neurology when you first went into chiropractic.
Not at all. I'm not going to lie. I went into school wanting to be just a normal chiropractor, and I threw my back out really bad. Like old people bad, where you can't put your socks on. Right?
I can empathize, actually.
Oh, yeah. And so I was in school at the time. I'd been in school for about a year. So, got adjusted at our clinic, felt kind of better, but you still can't move great. You know what I mean? With just adjustments. And so I had a classmate, who was like going to chiropractic school to become like one of these muscle activation doctors. And he was kind of dabbling into it already, even though we're only a year into school. But he already knew about it. He was into it. And so he comes up to me. He's like, hey, I can fix that. And I'm like, what do you mean? I already got adjusted. Yeah. We're on the same level too. It's only been a year in school. School is about 3.5 years, you know? So yeah. I'm like, what does he know that I don't? But he's like, no, like, let's do this. Oh, okay. So I took him up. At that point, you're desperate, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. When you're in pain, everything sounds reasonable.
Right. So he does the muscle activation stuff. He pushes on, you know, some really tender spots. Things hurt, but I get up and I bend over. And that was just a miracle.
That's what we were doing with the fingers with Steve. That's
exactly
what he was doing. So it's a very different kind of adjustment.
Yes, it was very different. Yeah. And
did it feel kind of like voodoo or something like that? Because this is not what's taught. This is not what's seen.
This is not what's seen.
It's almost like cranial sacral stuff.
Oh yeah. It's not taught. It's not seen. And I guess the reason behind that though is because there is not a lot of like science behind it. But they're really like not really research science, but there is some that's backing it up more and more now. And I'll talk about that.
Yeah, please.
But, so when he adjusted me or he did the pressure points and activated a muscle there, I was able to get up and bend over. I still had a little bit of pain, but I was able to do it. And that was like, no one else got me there. So I was like, I'll do whatever you do. So after that, that's when I sought out the technique, sought out the mentor to do that as well and learn that. And, then here I am too. So that's when I met Dr. Farmer. Yeah. At that time, since we both went to the same seminars, that's just how we met. Mm-hmm. I went into practice out here in Utah on my own. He did his own thing too, and actually worked for the mentor as well.
Was he in Utah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's serendipity.
Yeah. So then after that, just like seeing business models and stuff, we think that we have the ability to make this grow and make this more popular. Because sadly, some doctors don't want to spread the word in the sense that it's theirs. This is, I can do it, not anybody else. And that's okay. You know,
it's rife in every field.
Sure. I understand.
And, you're right. There's a lot of selfishness in the idea that I am the healer.
Sure.
When you're reality, you're working with them.
Yeah.
You have no idea where their pain point is. You have no idea, but they are able to help you. You know where around it is.
Oh yeah.
And that's where you get the best healing.
I agree. I tell patients all the time, you tell me, what do you need? You know? And so that's where we started to collaborate together a little bit more. And we think we want to spread the word. We want to be the people that, you know, that you can get your whole health optimized.
Which is why it's optimized chiropractic.
Exactly. Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
So you want to talk a little bit about the science behind it, because I know for a fact there's going to be people that are going to say there's no science based on this. They're going to turn off their brain.
Sure.
And kind of say this is all just hogwash.
Fair enough.
Where's the clicking? Where's the popping?
Right.
Where's the dramatic movement?
Oh yeah. Like that makes it feel like I'm doing something, right?
Yes.
Exactly. So one, we have to think about just our neurology and that we are who we are based on how we react to our environment. Mm-hmm. Not so much just what I put out. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
If something happens to me, I have to react to it, and that's who I am. That's what is going on. And so what happens with injuries, what happens with concussions, what happens with having babies, tissues get moved around, things get torn, and then those signals can't go back to the brain. Or your brain can't talk to them as well. There is damage. You fall and hit your knee. My knee is never the same again. There's neurology behind that. Why does it not feel the same again? You have to think about it certain ways. One is that the tissue damage there, and let's say your knee, has your muscles have receptors there. Your joints have receptors. These receptors measure length, tension, and speed of a contraction. And that's just science, right?
Yeah.
When I go to pick up a pencil, I know how much force to put in. I never had to think about that. My body knows what to do. It's great at it. But let's say you got hit in the head. Now I have to really think about
it's retraining,
reaching for that pencil.
Yeah.
And the pathways are a little different there. So what my job is to just remove that interference. I'm not trying to really even heal you. I just want to take that away so now you can communicate a little bit better.
Okay, I'm going to explain in my own words and see if I got it.
Sure.
So when we develop anything as a kid, it's all coordination. We have to think about everything consciously.
Sure.
Until we get a subconscious habit
exactly
built into it. But when we get that concussion, when we get that injury, it doesn't even have to be in the head. It can be where those nerve receptors are.
Exactly.
That signal is now looking for something different. It's almost as if the potentiometer of the machine has been turned a little bit. Exactly. And what you're doing is you're doing a hard reset of turning it off and having to reboot.
Exactly. So even, so your body learns and tries to like do things the same way, but it can't anymore. So then that's what we compensate. So instead of just reaching with my arm like this, then I start using my neck more.
Mm-hmm. Because you can do anything. You do it by bone or by muscle, or you can change that.
Exactly. So a lot of it, so even the pain model itself, like there's more and more research that pain is very complicated.
Oh yeah.
It's not just that I have like a cut here, so my brain lights up a little part of my brain. Hey, there's a cut right there. When you feel pain, there's 50 parts of your brain that light up. That just like, you have to think about that. Like these 50 parts of your brain incorporate so many different aspects of your life and everything.
Yeah.
One of those is emotional pain. Mm-hmm. Very real thing. Emotional pain can cause like physiological pain. And that's also
psychosomatic is a real thing.
That's also very scientific. So it's like chiropractic in that sense is scientific. There just hasn't been a lot of studies on it. Does that make sense?
Now, would you feel that people are not researching it because there's an old enclave that says this is the way we've always done it, this is the way we're always going to do it?
To an extent, yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's,
Chelsea was
stuck in old ways.
Similar about that as well.
Stuck in old ways. But there's New Zealand is making really great leaps and bounds with research right now, where they found if you adjust part of the spine, you actually increase stimulation in your prefrontal cortex, your decision-making part of your brain. That's amazing. So that's why people get adjusted. I feel clearer. My head feels better. Why? We're stimulating how you respond to your environment. I can receive more without feeling overwhelmed. And so I think this is just a very important point to make, is that when people try to deny that emotions can't have motor output, just what do you do when you're sad?
You hunch over everything. Your whole body has a language.
What do you do when you're excited?
You bring up your strengths and you open yourself.
You open yourself up. What do you do when you're angry?
Usually it's all in the face.
It's all in the face.
It's all that tension.
Some people do that, right? There's tension, right? So when people come to me with like, and like, oh, I don't think my stress is, causing stuff. Well, but like, yes, it kind of is. Your muscle memory and everything, right?
You've gotten really good at body reading.
I think I hope so. I'm always trying to learn, right? But yeah, you can see a lot in just how someone carries themselves.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah. And it's not, and I tell people this too all the time. It's not about wrong movements. It's not about you're standing wrong, you're doing something wrong. It's just about new movements. Did you know that you didn't have to reach like that and like that? We can retrain your body to just do things a little more optimally.
Thank you.
That's exciting. Oh yeah.
So I want to go into, I try to keep this around 30 minutes. We might be a little bit over on this one.
Okay.
This is an exciting topic. When you're actually adjusting, there are certain points, you're talking about nerve points, different things like that, that you're doing it, and you're doing pressure variation that's going in there. I saw that you had a diagram. You showed everything that was going on with Steve. I hope that still remember his name. It is Steve,
yeah,
right?
Steve, yeah.
And when you're doing that, is there certain parts that always flow? I mean, there's certain nexuses where things connect together. Is that what you're going after? Or are you trying to find the farthest out reaches? Or how do you go through your thought process? This is a better question. How do you go through the thought process from someone coming in to saying, okay, this is where we're going to start and this is our attack approach?
Very good question. So, one, we found that like we can turn on very specific muscles and very specific parts of the brain. And so you're right. Like there's so many things. How do we narrow it down? Mm-hmm. One is obviously just how the patient's feeling, their symptoms that they're telling me. And the way I have to look at it is to see either if they are connected, if like, two different complaints are connected, or if they're different. But what I really start to look at is how their whole body is just responding to this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's say someone like Steve, he came into me with, some hip pain and some shoulder pain. I have to go back into my knowledge and know that there's shoulder and hip work together quite a bit, right? So that's how I kind of narrowed that down, and knowing whether or not like things coordinate, when they coordinate and how they coordinate together, that's how I narrow it down, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense.
So, for example, for his test was that he couldn't point his toes up and down and still engage his quad. That shouldn't change too much, right? Mm-hmm. But then if let's say that didn't like change anything, that's where I have to change my approach. So I guess like the biggest thing as a practitioner is I can't be biased.
We have to come with a complete open mind.
Exactly.
Saying, is it this? No. Where in the flow chart does it go, and where does it come out?
Exactly. And that's based on their motor output, how they're moving, what they're moving, where they feel tension. I have some people bend over and they feel it in their hamstrings. Okay. Some people bend over. I feel it in my neck.
Mm-hmm.
Why? You know what I mean? But they could look very similar. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
So getting a lot of feedback from the patient.
So another thing you have to do is get them completely at ease, because you need them to be 100% honest.
True.
And the thing that happens to a lot of people, what's nice about doing normal chiropractic, you're going to do the same regardless if they're going to say it hurts or it doesn't.
Right.
But this one, you need that feedback.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so the goal of this eventually too will make this more objective. We're going to get more kind of like I checked his balance. I'm going to get a balance board at some point.
Things that can't deceive on.
Exactly. And then, I still
You
feel
get
like I'm
excited
wobbling.
about that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get excited. I can see it in your face. It's like,
yeah.
you've been working on this.
Oh yeah. We're really trying to get this to be, again, I guess more scientific, and because I promise there's science behind this.
Well, I know there is.
Oh yeah. And so just things like that, I feel like I still feel like I swayed, and okay, you did, but you swayed this much before versus this.
Yeah.
Right. So improvement. And that's where we can see that gap close. And then more objective things, I think, are just better for people.
I think we're on the topic. So what is the future for your practice to be able to get it so that you can, is there tools you're looking for or things that you're excited for to where it's going to be?
Oh, yeah. So in September, I'm planning to actually take a neurological course that will show me more of those type of bouncings, vestibular exercises and everything, so that anytime I work on somebody, they can go home and neurologically work on it. A lot of it is eye movements, head movements, things to stimulate the brain and keep that going. Because again, the goal of our treatment is to check up on people, but also that you can go and live your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And then a couple other things. These are the standard checklist questions.
Of course.
First off, where do you find your clients?
Awesome. I think through social media, but a lot of word of mouth. Most of it's word of mouth, I would say.
A healthy clinic's a word of mouth clinic.
Okay,
It
yeah.
really is.
I agree.
It's painful because it's slower,
Sure.
but it's stable.
Yeah.
Second, how do you deal with insurance?
Right now, we don't take insurance. That's most chiropractors. I worked at a clinic that did take insurance. I didn't really do a lot of the billing portion of it, but even a lot of other things, I had to argue with other doctors, get them to pay for things and blah, blah, blah. And it was not a fun time for me.
So one of the podcasts that I haven't come out is going to be, I don't know if you know Ryan Levitt.
Oh, I do. Yeah. I've heard the name. Yeah.
Yeah. He is premier. And actually we're going to ask a question on that as well, because
Sure.
Ryan deals with the reflexes. He deals with rehabilitation and physical therapy as well in his clinic. And what you're doing is a little bit of a competition to that, because people are going to look at that and say, why do this style rather than physical therapy, which is known, trusted, and I see it in movies, I see it in all sorts of stuff. How they get healed, Rocky gets strong this way, relearn everything else.
Sure.
Why this?
So the way I see it is that you kind of need them both. I do a lot of exercises with patients. I do a lot of, I guess we'll say just neurological exercises with them, and even physical exercises, squat, deadlift. I do a lot of that as well. But the way I see it is that if somebody comes in and let's say, even just like Steve, he had this weird inhibition thing where he points his toes down and his quad shut off. So if I made him go do, let's say calf raises with his legs extended, he's not going to get much out of that exercise because he's compensating somewhere.
Gotcha. Because it still hasn't gone to the root cause. It's just going to strengthen his current path.
His current pathway. Because neurologically, this is another fun study. They did a fun study with leg strength. With chiropractic care, they adjusted somebody and their leg strength went up 16%. That was equal to 3 weeks of strength training.
Wow.
That tells you that the first 3 weeks of strength training is neurological. But what neurological pathways are you stimulating, right? So you kind of have to think about it. That's how I see it, is that we need the muscle to work properly without any interference, and then we can put you through the correct exercises.
So I know in neurotherapy, they describe that there's only 2 ways to be able to get those pathways done.
Sure.
It's either a major event. So that's usually a bad thing. You break your knee, but sometimes it's a good thing.
Sure.
It's like the euphoria of trying something new and it works.
Right. Yep.
And that creates that pathway.
Yep.
Or repetition.
Sure.
Those are the 2 ways to get past that critical factor of saying, no, I'm always going to stay the way it is.
Sure.
Would you say that you're more on trying to stimulate that initial hit? Because it's not repetition. That's what physical therapy does.
Right.
Repetition, which is why if you do physical therapy correctly, it's there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
But if you do it wrong, you're training it wrong. And it's kind of saying down that pathway of failure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So which one do I see?
Yeah. Which one do you describe this as? Because you are having your patients come regularly.
Oh, yeah. I guess in a way, I do see it as we're trying to change a pathway. So what were the two options again? Sorry.
So there is a major neurological event.
Okay.
So, and for some people that varies. That's really hard to define what that is. We all understand the big ones. That's why we always jump to like, they broke a leg, or we talk about they have PTSD, but there are some minor ones as well. You're at the fair and you threw the dart and it popped the balloon you're aiming for, and wow, that just clicks. And from that point forward, that pathway goes through because that euphoria that comes in.
Oh, yeah.
And so you're actually activating the brain in a similar pathway. And I'm wondering if it is the former.
Right. Okay.
So the real way to answer that question is, how often does that happen and it falls off?
Right. So very good questions too. So one, I think the former is more of how I see it, is that kind of the neuroplasticity.
Yes.
You probably heard that. Is that in a way, I'm trying to open up another pathway because the body goes in the path of least resistance.
Yes.
The least resistance is me being stressed for the past 20 years.
That is.
My ears are, my shoulders are up to my ears.
It's a choice.
Right?
It's a great choice. It's serving.
Exactly. That's how I know to like make a pathway, to make a neurological connection. So the major event I think is getting adjusted, is getting that.
Yes.
However, my body will like to go back to that path of least resistance. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we have to have people come in often to get that retrained, but then that's where I find the exercises outside of what we do help as well. And the way I see it as well is like, you don't just go exercise once in your life.
No.
That's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. So I see as getting adjusted as like exercise in a way for your brain, for this and that. And yeah, maybe you don't go to the gym for a month. That's fine. Just get back at it later on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
to understand what you're saying, it does make a change, but they need to do exercise all the time. It's not necessarily coming back and doing the chiropractic over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it?
I want to lean toward no, just because I really do believe like people have the mental ability and capacity to heal themselves. However, if there's interference, that's going to be really hard to do. It's doable, but it's really hard to do things by yourself in general. Anything in life.
No,
it's hard, right?
It is.
Right.
And that's why we stick to it, because like I said, your head shrunk to the shoulders up like that. Why is that serving you? Because the alternative is worse.
Exactly.
Because you're protecting something.
Exactly.
You're causing pain to everything around to protect that one little thing
that
you don't want to deal with.
So just even another point, individualized care. Sometimes you don't want to first loosen up the tightest thing on a person. Seriously.
No, that's true. That's a great rule in life.
It really is, because that, like, you have to ease into things quite a bit there.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it is neurological training in the sense where, we get the interference, but now, hey, go work on it on your own and you're going to keep feeling better. And then, yes, maybe we need to remove this now, but hey, now I don't need to see you for a month maybe versus every week. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Oh yeah. At least that's my goal. Because I think there's value to healing, but also value into knowing yourself too.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
I love it. We've hit the over 30-minute mark.
Cool.
I really appreciate talking to you.
Always a pleasure.
And is there anything else? How do people get involved with you? How do they get in contact with you?
Yeah.
And what's the best way to reach you?
Best way to reach us is, I think, through our website, just optimizemy.health. So that's a good one. I love it. You can go ahead and book on that. And, we're working on still just making a little better website and, trying to get the message out. So we're still in the beginnings of a lot of our business stuff. But
do you have any social medias, any Facebook or anything?
Yes, I think just Optimize Chiropractic should be on there. On social media, I think on Facebook we're on there too. And we're all over. So just look up Optimize My Health.
Perfect.
Cool.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Sal.